Welcome back to Season 3, Episode 3, Breaking the Chains, Healing from Emotional and Physical Abuse. You can purchase my merchandise by clicking the link in the description below, or you can donate by also clicking the link in the description below. Thank you all so much for your continued support. I am your host, Kelly. My intentions was to continue discussing about manipulation with your abuser. However, I feel an urgency to discuss how post separation abuse affects children. Just because you leave your abuser doesn't mean that the abuse stops with you and your child or children. Here are some tactics used by your abuser during post separation abuse with your child or children. Number one, financial abuse. Your ex abuser or abuser will not give any money to help you with your child or children's needs and not pay child support. Your ex abuser will not give any money for your children's doctor copays, children's medications, school supplies, clothes, and extracurricular activities at school. 2. Harassment. Your abuser will send threatening text messages, voicemails, phone calls to try to maintain control in your life. Your ex-abuser will threaten to physically harm you too in phone calls, emails, or voicemails. 3. Legal abuse. The legal abuse is only for the abuser's image protection. Your abuser or ex-abuser wants to win at all costs during a divorce, custody situation, or during both. Your ex-abuser will threaten to take you to court to take your child or children away from you. He or she will pay off people associated with the legal system, meaning like psychologists, court recorders, law firms. A victim must hire a very high profile attorney that has many years' experience in family law. 4. Projection. Every toxic behavior that your abuser is doing to you, he or she will turn it around and proclaim that you are acting toxic. In reality, your ex abuser is projecting all of his or her toxic behaviors to you, to your child or children, and to you. Yet again, your abuser is still trying to maintain control over your emotions. 5. Parental alienation. Parental alienation is a strategy when the toxic parent intentionally displays to their child or children unjustified negatively aimed toward the healthy parent. The objective of this strategy is to damage their child or children's relationship with their healthy parent and to try to turn the child's emotions against their healthy parent. When your child or children get to a certain age, mainly at the preteen or teenage years, then he or she will completely see and understand that their toxic parent is trying to turn him or her against their healthy parent. 6. Abusive parenting. This abuse against your child or children will be emotional, verbal, physical, in nature. Here's an example of an emotional abuse that the toxic parent is doing to their children. If you don't wash the dishes, then I will beat you. The toxic parent will continue to threaten their child not to let their mom or dad know what's going on in their home, even if it's extremely bad. About 4 million cases of child abuse and neglect in the United States. Almost 7 million children reported being physically or mentally abused each year in the U.S., according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, DCS. About 656,000 kids were victims of abuse in 2019. I am certain these numbers have increased since 2019. There needs to be change immediately within our court systems and Department of Health and Human Services, DCS. Kids are innocent, therefore they should not experience physically or mental abuse from a parent. However, in America's court systems and DCS, there's a lot of child abuse cases are justified by politics and money. There is no amount of money or power that should allow children to be dealing with physically or emotionally being abused, or both. When children are being abused physically, mentally, or both, then he or she will have more anxiety and depression. Also, it is most likely the result of a toxic parent need for emotionally controlling their child or children. Therefore, the toxic parent wants to maintain control over the healthy parent by using their child or children. Therefore, the toxic parent will continue to hurt the healthy parent by degrading the healthy parent in front of their child or children, trying to persuade their children that their healthy parent is an unfit parent, crazy, alcoholic, drug addict, and many more degrading and false comments about their children's healthy parent. The 6 types of parental abuse from a toxic parent. 1. Physical abuse. There are 3 types of physical abuse. A. Isolation. Limiting your children the ability to escape from their dangerous, toxic parent's home. B. Aggression. Hitting, kicking, punching, pushing, beating, shoving your child or children, biting, slapping, shaking, pinching, choking, hair pulling, dragging their children, burning, cutting, or stabbing your child or children. C. Endangerment. Verbal threats. Threatening to kill your children with a weapon. 2. Mental abuse. Gaslighting. Lying about the past with their healthy I'll start that over. Lying about the past with their healthy parent because the toxic parent wants your child or children to doubt their memory of the healthy parent being a great parent. Also, projection will be used by the toxic parent to dump all their issues onto their child or children to make their children feel as if they didn't. Instead, their toxic parent did the horrible action or actions. Therefore, they will use manipulation so that your children will fear the worst, such as abandonment or rejection. 3. Verbal abuse. This is when their toxic parent uses intimidating words. This involves when he or she curses in threatening language from the toxic parent when their child or children doesn't comply with his or her orders. Also, the toxic parent will use the blame game when anything goes wrong. Then your children get the blame for it. 4. Emotional abuse. Your child or children will experience increased anxiety, and the reasoning for the increased anxiety is because your child or children is getting questioned about their let me restate that. Reasoning for the increased anxiety in your child or children is because he or she is getting questioned from their toxic parent about the healthy parent. They want to know about the healthy parent's every move, motive, where they attend church, and many more questions about their healthy parent. That is what the toxic parent will continue to ask their child or children about their healthy parent. Also, your children will have insecurity issues for when your child or children fail at something. He or she is held inferior to the toxic parent. There's also nitpicking at their children, is when their toxic parent belittles their children's accomplishments, aspirations, or personality in front of him or her. Parental alienation happens to a lot of children to which the healthy parent is being degraded and belittled by their toxic parent to convince their child or children that they aren't important and aren't a good parent. 5. Financial abuse. Stealing your child or children's money that he or she saved up for, that it took years for your child or children to save up for, and their toxic parent will state any excuse to their child or children as to why they spent their child's money, and it will never get paid back to your children. Six, the toxic parent will put bills and credit cards in their child or children's name without the child or children's knowledge. 7. Spiritual abuse. There are 6 types of spiritual abuse that children encounter with their toxic parent. 1. Submission. Their children must adapt to their parent's spiritual point of view. Your child or children isn't allowed to have a different opinion or question their spirituality, meaning that your children must have believed in the same denomination as their toxic parent and not question that denomination's beliefs. 2. Labeling. When your child or children does not comply with their toxic parent's beliefs, then he or she is seen as being disobedient, rebellious, lacking faith, filled with demons, or enemies of faith. 3. Public performance. The toxic parent demands that their children show perfection and obedience while attending a church service, youth or children's summer camp, lunches, or dinners at the church. Also, their toxic parent commands that your child or children to be happy at all church functions. 4. Legalistic. This applies to when their toxic parent demands your children to wear a certain kind of clothing to church, does not want their children to wear a dress or skirt that is short, and many more demands that the toxic parent will apply to their child or children. 5. Blind obedience is when your child or children is to worship their toxic parent, meaning no matter how badly his or her toxic behavior is on a daily basis, their toxic parent wants to be worshiped as if he or she did not have any mistakes in their life. 6. Abuse of authority. This happens when the toxic parent uses their spiritual authority as justification as to why their child or children should submit to him or her. 7. Fraud. The toxic parent wants your children to cover up his or her criminal conduct, domestic violence, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, or pornography addiction. Here's the long-term effects on a child or children that has been physically or emotionally abused. They could be diagnosed with diabetes. 2, they could be diagnosed with lung disease. 3, diagnosed with malnutrition. 4, he or she could have a heart attack. 5, vision problems. 6, arthritis. 7, high blood pressure. 8, chronic bronchitis. 9, migraine headaches. 10, cancer. 11, stroke. 12, bowel disease. And 13, 14, 15, and 16 are most likely to happen when a child or children has lived through physical or emotional abuse. 13, they'll be diagnosed with anxiety. 14, major depression. 15, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is PTSD. 16, when your child or children gets older, they could become like an extreme alcoholic or drug addict. I'm just going to mainly focus on just restate this. After a victim leaves his or her abuser, that doesn't mean that the abuse stops. This is called post-separation abuse. And if you and your abuser have a child or children together, then the toxic parent will try to persuade your children that you are the crazy parent. Actually, the victim is the healthy parent. And also, I want to restate this because I found this very alarming. I was not aware of this. There are about 4 million cases of child abuse and neglect in the United States. Almost 7 million children reported being physically or emotionally abused each year in the U.S., according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, DCS. About 656,000 kids were victims of abuse in 2019. And I am certain that these numbers have increased since 2019. There needs to be change immediately within our court system and Department of Health and Human Services, meaning DCS. And however, in America's court systems and DCS, a lot of child abuse cases are justified by politics and money. There is no amount of money or power that should allow children continue to be dealing with emotional or physical abuse, or both. And I believe that I'm going to state this in the state of Tennessee, like a few years ago. I know if you were like, it was passed that if you were going through a divorce and custody battle, that um, it was the law was changed to all of it handled in chancery court, and whereas before this law was passed, the divorce was handled in chancery court, and the custody battle was handled in juvenile court. I believe we should go back to the custody battle handled in juvenile court for the state of Tennessee, and I'm not aware about all the other states in the U.S. However, I do know for the state of Tennessee, that's how it works. From personally speaking too, and I think that should be changed at all custody issues, and even when you go through a divorce and custody battle, because Chancery Court really doesn't know much about a children's well-being and where, what is the best environment for the child, whereas the juvenile court would. So I believe the state of Tennessee should go back to hearing cases in the juvenile court for the custody issues, and the divorce handled in chancery court only, just the divorce part, not the divorce and custody should not be all be handled in chancery court. The custody issues should be handled in the state of Tennessee, I believe, in juvenile court. I believe if we go back to that a lot of these numbers will drop, at least for the state of Tennessee. I don't know how the other states, how that works in other states. I'm just know how it works in the state of Tennessee where I live. So I hope you all, this was very insightful, and I will continue discussing about manipulation in my next podcast. And thank you all so much for your continued support by listening to my podcast. Again, you can donate by clicking in the description below, or you can also buy my merchandise by clicking the link in the description below. And I hope you all have a great weekend.